Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of a Midnight Double Feature. This one's a bit of a special one. We're breaking away from our feature presentations. We're breaking away from... we're not hiding this behind our bonus green room paywall. We're going to drop this right here because I'm excited to talk about this topic, and we have an amazing guest with us. When I say we, my main man Colin. Colin, how you doing?
Hey, what's up, buddy?
And our amazing guest is the legendary Floyd Fry. Welcome back, man.
Hey, thank you. Thanks for having me on. I am beyond excited to be on for this episode.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, this is all good things come from the after party, and you posted your personal experience with Woodstock from on the after party, and I was like, we got to talk. We actually got to talk.
100%.
So I'm so glad we're doing this.
What I'll add to that, though, like you know, this is kind of a little bit different. I think that there could be some pretty good podcasts on documentaries in general. I mean, there are some really entertaining documentaries that could spark some really interesting conversations. And I'm not saying this is necessarily one of those. Of course, we're going to talk about, you know, artists and performers and what have you. But just documentaries in general, you don't hear that much. People like actually doing a podcast on documentaries. And I think it's enthralling with most of them. I mean, that's why they're documentaries, right?
No, dude, I absolutely agree. I've been going down a bit of a documentary binge over the last week, right? I watched this. I rewatched Brian Fogel's Icarus, which is on Netflix. It's all about the anti-doping, or well, actually, rather the doping stuff that was happening with the Russian Olympic teams. I watched his follow-up to that, which is called The Dissident, which is about a Saudi Arabian I guess, journalist who was murdered or suspected of being murdered inside a consulate in Turkey. His name was Jamal Khashoggi. It's fucking insane, dude. Like that, it's called The Dissident. But like, yeah, dude, I watched that. I watched another one on Netflix called Pray Away, which is all about goddamn. It was about you know, the whole what's it called when the They try and convert you from being gay.
Conversion therapy
means. Yes.
No, they're
and in particular that one covers a group called Exodus, and man, that shit was pretty wild. So yeah, I've just been like, you know, once I get into a documentary phase, I just go down a rabbit hole, and I'm just like, you know what, man, I don't know if I want to watch anything fictional right now. I just want to be sitting here like enjoying real shit.
Yeah. I mean,
know?
and the thing is, like, if you start going down these documentary roads and like you get into stuff like I know that I've been on you a couple times about watching what is that, the Ozploitation, the documentary, the Ozploitation documentary about like the Australian filmmaking. But even if you get into something like, I remember a couple years ago there was this Oscar-nominated documentary called Honeyland. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that, but I stumbled on it one night, and it's so crazy. It's about this woman that lives like in the Balkans, and that's how she lives. She has this like hive that's up in this cave, and she gets this honey and puts it in these jars and then goes and sells it. And she lives with her mom, and it's literally like a one-room building, and it's amazing. There's this documentary where the people are filming this, and it's totally real and raw. It's this woman living essentially in a one-room shack, and she's surviving off of this natural phenomenon that she's found, this honey cave, and people move in beside her, and there's all these things that end up start happening, and it's just amazing that we've captured that. And sometimes, you know, you get those documentaries, and it's so much better than like Roger Moore or is that his name? Michael Moore or something like that, where it's so, and I'm not even talking political, but it's just so like created or you know, there's all these elements that they're putting together rather than just like these filmmakers that are catching this moment. You know what I mean? So
right.
It's like there are documentaries on different levels that you can watch. And so I always encourage people, like, discover some documentaries, because you never know what you're going to find that is really going to spark your interest, you know?
It's really funny you mentioned that. Sorry, Colin, I'm going to let you talk. Sorry, don't worry, I'm going to let you jump in. But like, you mentioned Michael Moore. I mean, obviously Floyd. When I was in high school, I loved Michael Moore documentaries. Man, I mean, like, you're in high school, they're very accessible.
Absolutely.
They have this like sense of humor about them. Bowling for Columbine and Fahrenheit 9/11, obviously. But Sicko as well.
Mm-hmm.
But like, like. It's funny to see how documentaries have come, like, from those early documentaries and how they were created to now. Like, now they're just all about moments, I guess.
Yes.
Like, another one I watched actually this week was called Free Solo, which won the Oscar, I think, 2 years ago.
The rock climbing or something?
Yeah, it's about a guy who just, like, scales a fucking cliff face in Yosemite without any ropes.
Yeah.
it's an incredible feat, dude. But yeah, like, there are these big documentaries with political, I guess, I don't want to say agendas, maybe agendas is too strong, but like political, I guess, connotations behind them, like Fahrenheit 9/11 and Bowling for Columbine. And I think Bowling for Columbine's amazing. It's just, I feel like it's a little dated. I love the era that we're living in now with these documentaries that are coming out, and these moments in time like Woodstock 99 that just kind of shed a light on something that happened that people don't really know about. Well, I mean,
right.
When I say know about, I'm talking about Fire Festival. I have Fire Festival stuck in my head.
Yeah, there's two of those, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, there was two of those that came out during the same year or same month. But yeah, Colin, how you doing? You doing all right?
Yeah, dude, I'm doing good. Colin. No, you fucking nerds. No, just really when I was just over here, going like, man, what kind of like, cause I'm bad about watching documentaries, but I do have like an infinity gauntlet of like 5 documentaries that I'm like the best, I fucking love them. Cropsy is one that's really good.
Oh, that's really good. Yeah.
Cropsy's great, but also I like Cropsy a lot, but the same people did Killer Legends, and I like Killer Legends, I think, a little bit more because that's got that movie. I think they talk about that movie you love, The Town That Dreaded Sundown.
Yes.
I think
I'm familiar. I'm very familiar with both of those. Yes, those are both very good.
Yeah,
Cropsy was like New York or New Jersey or like New England.
Yeah, he was like
right?
He was the Staten Island boogeyman, like Andre Rand, I think is his name. I can't remember. But yeah, Geraldo Rivera got that mental institution shut down with his expose that he did. And then everybody just went out and lived in the woods and shit. It's really fucked up. But when it comes to documentaries, I'm bad about watching them, but I'm always down to watch them. And in the case of this documentary specifically, it's got 2 of my favorite things. It's got history and it's got music. And I'm a sucker for biopics. I'm a sucker for, I've read a lot of like musicians' biographies or autobiographies or memoirs. So I can't
tell you how many times in this podcast since we started it where Colin's like, have you heard of this band? Have you heard of this artist? And I'm just like,
oh, dude,
no.
I was going to go through it. I was like, man, I wish I were watching this with Zoheb and just go like, do you know who Live is? And just be like, I don't know. The fact, have you ever heard of the Spin Doctors? Like just throwing random bands at it. Do you know who Our Lady Peace is? No, because I was just dying. I was like, I bet you Zoheb feels like a dude in a foreign country listening to these bands.
I you know what? I never even considered that when you guys invited me on. I never even thought about he probably doesn't know a lot of those like mid-level to low-level bands. I never thought about that.
Right. And same. I mean, if the shoe's on the other foot, I couldn't maybe Silverchair for 90s Australian like rock bands, like maybe Silverchair, maybe like Butterfly Effect. Like there's maybe like a handful of them that I could really remember. But
you guys got to get on Client Liaison. Fucking amazing band, dude.
Okay, I'll check him out. But this one, and there's a really, really great, just kind of on the terms of documentary while I was thinking about it, it's called, I think it's Carts of Darkness. And it was made in 2008. And this guy who was a snowboarder, I think it's like Murray, what was his name? Murray Siple, Siple. He was a snowboarder and he got into a car accident that left him basically like permanently paralyzed from the neck down. I think he can barely move his arms, but he's like always in a wheelchair. But he went to Canada and found these dudes who were racing shopping carts down like busy streets and shit, going like 40 miles an hour.
Wow.
And they would hang on the handlebars and like race them. And they didn't have jobs. They went and collected cans all day and turned them in for money. And then they would race and go live in the woods at night and get drunk. And it's fucking awesome because he was like, you know, I'm coming out of this car wreck. I'm like super depressed. I can't skateboard anymore. And I find these dudes who are like racing carts in Canada, and it's like the most rebellious thing like ever, you know, and a lot of them are alcoholics and been to jail like 10 or 12 times and shit. But he just goes out in the woods and he's like sitting there in his wheelchair, just like drinking a 40 with these guys. It's like, this is so bizarre, but like awesome at the same. It's called Carts of Darkness. It's really, really fucking good. But
that sounds good.
It's like Trailer Park Boys meets like, and like a rollerblading movie from the 90s. That's the best way I can describe it. But that's kind of like my thoughts in general with documentaries. I do like documentaries, but sometimes I'm also like what Zoheb said, not so much like the political aspects of it, but sometimes I feel like things can come across like, okay, they're trying to make a certain point about things. Like, what exactly is the point that they're trying to make? Do I agree with that point? Because I have a problem with watching documentaries and getting really sucked in and going like, well, yeah, I mean, that's it. It's like, well, maybe investigate the story on your own a little bit. Like, I like documentaries. I assume that everything in them is accurate, but I always go out after the fact. I'm like, before I just buy everything spoon-fed from this hour-and-a-half long thing, I'm also going to go check out the real story and just kind of see exactly what got left out, what really went on. Because there was a lot of bands at this 99 Woodstock that they do not talk about in the documentary. Like Everclear, I think from what I Googled, because I didn't see this at all, I think Aerosmith, the Chemical Brothers, Everlast, Fatboy Slim, John Fogerty, Ice Cube. And it's like, dude, I didn't know any of those bands played. You know, I think
you talking about Woodstock 99?
Yeah, it's an artist expected to participate in Woodstock 99 in
Aerosmith did not.
Alphabetical order. No,
Aerosmith, they did not, because I am and was a huge Aerosmith fan. They were actually supposed to close out. They were supposed to be the Chili Pepper spot, and they dropped out. Now, I don't know why they dropped out, but they dropped out. So I'm just saying, me being a huge fan, they did not perform there. But I was excited that I thought they were going to, and then they dropped out at the last minute and they filled in with Chili Peppers. But
because correct me if I'm wrong, like were you at this show, Floyd? Because I don't know your history with this at all. Like I'm totally blind.
Yeah, I was there. Yeah, I went.
Holy shit!
Me and 4 friends went.
That's why we fucking have him here, Colin.
Well, you said some post on the after party. I was like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. I didn't see that at all.
Yeah, I was there.
What essentially happened is like I posted like a little review, and Floyd responded to it. He's like, "Yeah, I was there."
That makes sense. I don't read your shit. I look for Floyd's.
Before we do move into Woodstock 99, one last point I want to make about documentaries, and I think it kind of has to be made because there's just so many of them. I'm slowly finding myself getting burnt out about the true crime documentaries.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I'm slowly, like, you know, like they need to, I mean, like, obviously I was obsessed when they were coming out, but like now it's just like they need to do something else for me to be interested in them. Like, you know,
totally agree.
I was watching Sons of Sam, which was pretty interesting, but again, didn't blow my hair back. And I watched the Night Stalker documentary, which was also pretty okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, none of them, like, they're so straightforward, and they're so kind of like, you know, here's this, here's that, and, you know, here's some talking heads, and it's just like, man, like, I've seen this so many times before. One of the most, I guess, innovative, true crime documentary was probably Don't Fuck with Cats.
Oh, that's good.
Like, the way they told that story, dude. The way they told that story was so narrative-esque. Like, you know, it was just like reading a book. You know, there was no, I mean, I think there were talking heads from memory, but it was just like, there was no, like, it didn't feel like the usual structure, you know? So I'm finding myself gravitated towards more of these kinds of documentaries, like Woodstock 99 or Free Solo, where it's just, you know, people or events going crazy or people doing wild shit instead of the true crime stuff now, like, you know, because obviously that is something that I'm interested in, you know, outside in my personal life. You know, I love, you know, true crime podcasts, whatever, but I'm just slowly finding myself getting burnt out about that kind of documentary genre.
Now, I want to comment real quick based on that, Z, what you're saying, and Colin, I want to go back a little bit on yours with looking into stuff. And I'm going to make a comment that's going to make everybody really mad. So I have no idea what this backlash is going to be, but I truly...
Floyd loves Attack of the Clones.
No. It might be worse. The West Memphis 3 did it.
Oh, fuck you.
Ooh.
Fuck you.
They did it.
Fuck you, Floyd.
They did it.
Oh.
We talked about this, and
They did it.
Oh, man. For about 3 months, I was just like neck deep in some West Memphis 3, and it just got to a point where I was like, man, this is probably the most depressing true crime. I can't really follow this anymore. You know, I was like, I felt like Bill Armstrong in Zodiac when he was like, I'm turning in my badge, dude. I can't.
I'm just telling you, like in your synopsis where you were like, hey, look into stuff. I'm just telling people, look into stuff. Look at the actual witnesses and what they saw. I'm telling you, I remember a moment where I was just like neck deep in it and reading these like police reports. And there was a point where I was just like, those son of a bitches did it. They actually did it. I'm telling you.
I smell another crossover
opinion,
episode
of course.
happening.
But you look into it on your own. But I'm just telling you, don't just go with those documentaries. Look into it.
No, you're exactly right. Because when I watched, what is that big one that blew up in the 90s? They made
Paradise
3 of them.
Lost.
Paradise
There's 3
Lost.
parts. Yeah.
That is
It's the same guy that did the Ted Bundy ones that just came out on Netflix a couple of years back.
That first Paradise Lost those first 5 minutes are really hard to get through because it's just, you see these kids' bodies and shit, and it's like, ooh, that's rough. I expected that, just not front loaded.
Real quick. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're cool. I was just saying, I literally went to like Reddit and I was like, West Memphis 3 evidence that they did it, West Memphis 3 evidence that they didn't, you know, and I was like literally reading back and forth, and there's like eyewitness people that are like, yeah, we saw them like covered in mud, like walking through the woods and shit, and it's like, what the fuck? Like, that's crazy.
And walking down that little they were seen walking down that little bypass road, you know what I mean, that goes kind of along the highway or whatever. I'm just telling you. In my opinion,
it's very interesting, man. I would love to do an episode about that and just pick each other's brain. It's been a couple of years since I got into it, but I need to read that Devil's Knot book. I heard that was pretty good.
Real quick side story, real quick. So
go for it, dude.
In 2014, Ohio State played in the national championship, and it was in Dallas. So me and some buddies on that Sunday, the championship was on Monday. Me and some buddies on that Sunday jumped in a car and we drove down to watch the game. Okay. On the way back, when we're coming through Arkansas, we came through West Memphis. And I said, hey, man, we're trying to get back because we're trying to go to work. I was like, we got to go over here and look at this. We literally drove through that neighborhood. We drove over. We drove over to that creek. The pipe is still there. All that is still, it was so fucking, I can cuss, right?
Yeah.
It was so fucking
like
weird and eerie, man. I mean, it was so weird driving through that neighborhood where it's like this kind of depressed, older, like housing development that you could tell was kind of nice 40 years ago. You know what I mean? It was like, but it was weird just being there and seeing all that. It was crazy. But when I saw West Memphis, I was like, guys, we got to go watch. We got to go over here and drive through this.
Yeah, I would too.
Man, I want to go hard and just deep dive into West Memphis 3. Because I mean, like, I know about it, but very, very on a shallow level. Like, I think I've only listened to a podcast on it. I haven't watched those 3 documentaries.
See, what I will tell you is even from a point of like the interest in the actual crime, the entertainment value is through the roof, man. I mean, it's fantastic. All 3 of those are fantastic to watch.
All right, cool. All right, awesome. Yeah, I'll definitely check them out. All right, man. Well, here we are. We're covering Woodstock 99. We're obviously prompted by the documentary that just came out, HBO original, called Woodstock 99, Peace, Love, and Rage. Interestingly produced by a couple of guys from The Ringer, Bill Simmons and Sean Fennessy. I don't know if you guys know The Ringer, the big podcast network. Maybe not.
Oh, yeah.
I was sitting there going, the Johnny Knoxville movie? Like the Johnny Knoxville movie? Wait a minute, what the fuck?
No, they're like, well, Sean Fantasy, I know, is like a critic. Like they've got a pretty big podcast called The Rewatchables, The Big Picture. Yeah, I think Bill Simmons is also a reporter as well from memory. But this documentary dropped, and I had no connection to Woodstock at all. Like I've got no, no one that I know went to Woodstock. I mean, obviously before Floyd told me, but like I'd heard, references to Woodstock made before, right? I mean, like I've seen a lot of movies. Every time I see a reference to Woodstock being like, oh my God, it's just like Woodstock, I'm just like, oh, okay. All right, I guess that was a film, like a movie, a music festival or something that people went to. And then, this documentary drops, and I'm listening to one of my favorite podcasts called Real Blend. It's just these three critics. It's a great podcast. And, they talked about it on that podcast, and they were just talking about like what a horror film it was, basically. And I was like, man, like that sounds really interesting. And I went pretty deep on the whole Fire Festival debacle, and one of the documentaries that came out. You can probably rifle back through Midnight Oil Features kind of like episodes and find an episode that I did with Jill, a friend of the show, Jill. And that was a great documentary. That was a clusterfuck of epic proportions. So I'm like, all right, man, like let's see how Woodstock 99 holds up against that. And boy, does it. Yeah. Holy shit, man. This was a shit show of epic proportions. Firstly, before Floyd, we get into your, I guess, personal experiences or what you saw, what your recollection of it is. Let's just talk about the documentary. Just firstly, we all saw the documentary. What did you guys think of the documentary as just a documentary?
Go ahead, Colin.
Floyd, you go for it. You're the guest. No, you got it.
Okay.
I'm a great host. I should point it out.
You can't.
I honestly thought that it was fairly accurate. There's a little, exaggeration here and there. But I, being a person that actually went to it and was there, I'm with everyone else. Like where the main guy, I don't know, the guy that was kind of like the public guy for MTV. You know what I mean? I'm sorry, I don't even know the name. I don't know if you got a Z, but that guy, he's just wrong. You know what I mean? I mean, when he's like pontificating about like, well, it's a concert. The water should cost $4. It's not a concert. It's a 3-day event. You can't charge people $4. You know what I mean? I mean, all of that felt real to me when I watched it. There was no point in that. There was maybe no point. I would have to go back and watch it, but very few points that nothing sticks out to me where I was just like, oh, that's bullshit. You know what I mean? All of it was like, yeah, that happened. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, we had no water. People were shitting everywhere. Everything cost $1 million. It was crazy hot. And like all that was real. I mean, there's no exaggeration to any of that.
And dude, like something I gotta ask about the amount of people. Like some of the shots that you see in this documentary, like there are like insurmountable amount of people in the crowd.
Yeah,
at the main stage, and I'm just like, how? Like, is this not? This is a ticketed event, but I know people broke in as well, and eventually snuck in. But like, damn,
I will tell you that I watched it on my own. Sorry, excuse me. I watched it on my own, and then I had a couple friends over on like a Sunday afternoon that had went with me. There was 5 of us total. There was 3 or 4 of us watching it on my back porch, and one of the moments that we all were like, yeah, that was real, was to your point, was the moment when they talk in the documentary about like, you had no control. There were moments where you're in that crowd and like, you can lift your feet off the ground and you're just moving. I mean, it's just like a wave of people.
That's terrifying.
Yeah, totally terrifying. And I do mean it. I'm not, you could lift your feet off the ground and everybody's just kind of like moving like this wave of humanity. You know what I mean? It was just
yeah,
scary, but also fun. You know what I mean? There's a certain level of fun to that. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
you're in this this moment and everybody's together and we're all kind of partying or whatever, you know what I mean? But that we all looked at each other, we're like, yeah, that was real.
Dude, I'm sorry.
Dude, that's intense.
I have to tell. This is just a super quick story, but if I don't say it, I will forget.
This is what's going to make up the brunt of the podcast is stories. Like this is why I brought us on. So let's go for it. Yeah.
It's not my story and it's very quick, but I had a friend of mine named Jimmy, nicest, most clean cut, like guy in the world. And he, you know, it was so funny because he was really quiet. He's a photographer, real skinny, like band kid, but he listened to just like Kill Switch Engage, like metal. Not that you have to be this like dirty person to listen to metal, but knowing him, it just kind of threw you through a loop the first time you hopped into the car with him and heard a CD. But he went to a Kill Switch show. And he was getting ready to go into the pit and he hauls back his arm like this, like hauling his elbow back to like go throwing punches in and hits this fucking 4'11" girl right in her nose with his elbow.
Jesus.
And I was not there. My friends went to the show and they said that like, I mean, this guy is 6 foot something all bone. Like he's just skinny as a rail. So he just hauled back and they said this girl just, it looked like a horse kicked her and he just ran into the pit, had no idea he'd even hit her. And I was like, Jesus Christ, man. And that's the kind of shit, like what you were talking about, being in a pit is kind of terrifying, but at the same time, it's kind of like, it's like a roller coaster. It's like kayaking. It's probably, you know, like surfing or something. It's like, yeah, this wave is terrifying, but you know, you'll probably be all right at the end of it. You might come out a little scraped and bruised, but I do well in pits. I'm 6'4" and 300 pounds. So it's like, who's going to fucking move me? You know, like, who's going to, if somebody's moving me, I'm going over here. I'm getting the fuck out of the pit is what I'm doing.
What did you think about the documentary as a whole, Colin?
I liked it pretty well. I think that it's hard for I will defer to the expert because I was not there, and I think that I trust Floyd when he says that, hey, this is a pretty accurate representation. I was 9 when this happened. I had just turned 9, so I would have been in 4th grade, I think, because I graduated when
6.
I was. Yeah.
Just to interject for a second, just to kind of set the stage. So in 1999, I would have turned 21 in February, and this would have been July. So I'm 21 years old when I'm going to that.
Nice.
And most of us were. There was 2 of us that were underage. So just so you know, we're 20, 21 going to that. I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah, no, that's good context. Because like, you know, I remember 99 very well. I remember Columbine. I remember Y2K. I remember a lot of stuff. I remember staying up on New Year's Eve and watching the ball drop. And my mom still has a top hat we went and bought that says Happy 2000. I think 21 years old, just some cardboard thing sitting up on a shelf. I enjoyed it for the most part. I think that, you know, there is a bit of like talking head syndrome on this that I was like, who the fuck is this person? You know, like I like when they cut to Moby. I like when they cut to Scott Stapp. I like when they like talk to people that were kind of there. But like, I do think there's a little too much like dramatization on it. I feel like there's a great part where somebody says like, by Sunday, if you were still there, what the fuck are you doing? You know, it's like, that's on you at this point. You need to get the fuck out. And that's kind of like, you know, my thing is you watch this and you see people talk about like, oh, it's Lord of the Flies and people just lost their minds. And I do think that that's definitely part of it to a degree, but I feel like that's obviously an element that they hype up for a documentary that they're making about it. I can't say anything because I wasn't there. You know, I can't say that for sure that this is 100% accurate or not. But to me, it felt like a little like, I don't know. I feel like you're trying to really push something. And I don't know if I would 100% agree with it. And I enjoyed it for the most part. But there were parts like, you know, when they start talking, I love when they talk about culturally what was going on. You know, they talk about Clinton, they talk about
the feeling at the time.
Yes, they're setting the scene. They're literally exterior, night, whatever. You know, it's literally the scene setting for it. So I enjoyed a lot of like, in order to understand, you know, because a lot of people that are watching this were not alive or were not there at that, or might have been, you know, Uriah's age, you know, 9 and 6 years old. So I do think that that's part of something that they take into consideration that is done extremely well, is kind of like, where are we culturally at that moment? And that is very well done. I think that is, and a lot of this is very well done from the footage that they got. That fucking Dave's journal is very hard. That is a very hard thing to watch. There are some great moments in it, but there were also moments that I just kind of felt like, Like the moment with DMX, and then they're cutting to the crowd, and the crowd is singing back the N-word to him. And now, obviously, through a 2021 lens, that looks ridiculous. That's very different. But there's something like, I know that you can look through it through a 2021 lens, but I felt like there were parts of it where it's like, this is not really about what happened there. Now I feel like this is kind of like us looking back on it and kind of like, oh Lord.
Right. There's like a extra level of hindsight.
Right. It's kind of like,
yeah.
It's kind of a level of cringe that you were kind of like, oh God, to see that many people lose their shit over Kid Rock and Limp Bizkit is cringy, is very cringy. and I grew up in the South, you know, and at this time, Scott Stapp, Kid Rock, and Fred Durst were gods. Like they were fucking gods when I was 9 years old. All the kids had khakis. They had the shirt on backwards. They had those fucking seashell necklaces and their Billabong t-shirts. You know, everybody had a copy of Tony Hawk. Everybody had Velcro
fucking wallets.
Yeah, everybody had a copy of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. You know,
oh shit.
So I feel like it's a little dramatic. You know, I feel like there's parts of it where it's like, I'm sure that conditions were as bad as you were saying, but I feel like there's also points where it's like, I feel like you're stretching this a little bit. Again, that's just the kind of impression that I got, because I felt like it was very, you know, the people that were talking about it being a disaster were not a lot of the artists. I feel like Scott Stapp wasn't really saying a lot of stuff. Really was Moby and a couple of the other like journalists and talking heads that they brought on. And that's kind of like, when I watch this, I feel like it tries to pin the blame on Fred Durst a little bit. And that is true. That's a contributing factor. It absolutely is. Fred Durst helped nothing at that show, but it's not, I don't think that anything in what happened in this is one person's fault. And I feel like they kind of passed the buck around to a lot of people. Fred Durst, they passed it to the people that set it up. They passed it over to the crowd. And I don't know. I feel like it's just kind of a powder keg of like, look at how, you know, the group that brought those candles to mourn for Columbine had nothing but the best intentions, and it was disastrous. It was so fucking bad. And you know, the thing is, there's a great moment that I love in the documentary, and there's a guy walking and he's leaving, and you see the fires in the background. And I think he finally says, he's like, you know, somebody's going to look at this and say, oh, this is all 90s shit. He's like, this is not us. And he was like, this is not what we're about. And I'm fucking leaving. And I was like, yes, thank you. Fucking thank you. Cause I'm like, not everybody there wanted to light shit on fire and kill people. I assume, right. Floyd.
Well, I did, but I'm just joking.
Yeah, I killed people and lit them on fire.
I said the same thing, Colin, at that exact moment in the movie. Because I like that they're showing some level of impartiality. I mean, like,
that's my only thing.
You were talking about it as well. Yeah, you were talking about it as well. You kind of need to do your own research with documentaries, but you also kind of need to keep an open mind and like just realize that this is a director's point of view, right? I mean, like, this is a director's like, it's a vision, right?
This is a piece of entertainment. Movie. You know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
and I think that was one of my favorite moments that I wish they had shown more people in the crowd that were like, hey, man, this is not cool. Like, this is not what we're about. And I don't feel like you got that perspective a lot. And the thing, like, you also, it enrages you when you see the fucking, I can't remember, not because I think it's Michael Lang is the guy who did the 69 one, the guy with the longer hair, I think. But the bald guy, the other dude, I can't remember what his name is. Excuse me. But I remember him. He's like, I'm just saying, if you're a woman and you're naked walking around the festival, and I was like, shut the fuck up, dude. Yeah, that is not the stance you need to.
Insane.
Now, it's indefensible.
I do have a little bit of personal experience with that. So, a lot of the big concerts, like Rage and Metallica and even Kid Rock and you know, Limp Bizkit and those, and even Chili Peppers in the end. So I'm not as tall as you, Colin, but I'm a big dude. I was probably at that point in time, I was probably 6 foot, like 275. And nice. Virtually every time there was a big concert, at some point in time, a girl would say, "Hey, can I get on your shoulders?" I mean, it was just, it was what it was. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
But I'm telling you, almost every time that happened, there was like a 45-second thing where that girl would get on my shoulders, and of course she's taking her shirt off, and there was a little bit of a rush at us. You know what I mean? There would be guys coming that are trying to touch this girl and doing and she was the girl, whoever that would be at that time. She was usually the one that would kind of be like, no, you know what I mean, and kind of smack the hands and do that. And of course, at that point, I'm kind of like, hey guys, well, she's not into it. You know what I mean? So there would be this like 45-second thing where they was like, we're getting rushed and like almost getting knocked over. And then when they realized like, okay, she's not into it, then they would kind of chill out. I'm not walking through the crowd with her. I'm standing in this one area. There's 15 people around us. Those 15 guys would come up, and then all of a sudden, like, she had to be forceful. You know what I mean? Just like, I'm not into this. Don't touch me. You know, and then they would kind of chill out or whatever. But I'm telling you, man, like almost every time there was this group of guys that would just kind of come in on us. You know what I mean? So it was, was definitely happening. You know what I mean? And if that girl, whoever she is, wasn't kind of like, I would never do that with a girl that was like drunk and passing out or doing something crazy, but like they're totally sober and cognizant and everything. And so they would be like, knock it off. You know what I mean? And then it would kind of chill out. But I'm telling you, every time there was this little crowd of guys that would run around and try to get up there and touch that girl and do whatever. You know what I mean? So that stuff was going on. And I definitely saw the girls like getting up on the crowd surfing, and you're seeing hands going up shorts and all that. So that did happen, but I think that happens a lot. And I'm not saying it's right in any way. You know what I mean? I mean, it's fucking horrible. It's, disgusting. I have 2 daughters. You know what I mean? I mean, it's horrible, but it was happening. I'm sure there were girls that actually got, those things
you can
happen.
Watch the footage, and every time there's a pair of tits that's going through the crowd, you just see, and it's like not like, it's like angry grab. And it's like, dude, it's like watching Dylan Moran get ripped apart in Shaun of the Dead. It's like, calm the fuck down.
Yeah.
You know, and it's disgusting to hear the promoters downplay that and be like, oh, I think some people there were some knuckleheads. And it's like, no, there's fucking rapists. And I mean, you have a crowd of 400,000 people. Not everybody in there is going to have the most positive
healthy.
Yes, exactly. Well, they don't have the most healthy mindsets, and they don't have the best wherewithal for everybody there. And I think that there are people that it's like,
and possibly inhibited by drugs and alcohol.
Possibly.
Right. I mean, like you gotta, and the hate. Yeah.
Well, it's like what Floyd said. What makes me think of it is, it's like sharks. Like you just cut your hand and put it in the water, and the sharks come. And that's something that I feel like, and then later on, that woman, the one with the purple hair, who set up that message board, and she was like, I got dozens and dozens of email. I think there were 4 sexual assaults in all that were just reported. That means there's probably 20.
Oh yeah,
honestly,
yeah.
Like there's probably more than that. So to hear them downplay that is what that guy put his foot in his mouth fucking royally through this whole thing. I mean, really, really shot himself in the foot.
That honestly made my stomach turn when he's like really just trying to downplay that, man. That was like, I was like, because like, up until that point, it's, the festival is what it is, like everyone's just raging around. And then once you get to the sexual assault angle, it's like, no, this is serious. There are serious crimes being committed. And this guy just like downplays it just in the most, I guess, backhanded way possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I loved when Dexter Holland from The Offspring was just like, hey, just because she's crowd surfing without a shirt on doesn't give you a right to start squeezing tits. Yeah. And that guy, by the way, like, Zoheb, do you know who The Offspring is?
I've heard of the band. Yeah.
Okay. I'm sure you would know a song if you heard it, but that guy has like a PhD in microbiology. He was like valedictorian of his high school. That guy's a genius. He's a very smart. I'm a huge, huge Offspring fan. We grew up with them. We had that, whatever album had gone away. I think it might have been like Ixnay and the Hombre. We had that on tape, and we listened to that like all the time. I can't remember what album that was.
He's a pilot too.
Yeah, dude, that guy, he's a very smart guy. But I there is something too where it's like, as you're watching it, what I was kind of thinking is like, if they had done this when I was 18, 19, 20 years old, what bands would have come? And there probably were big festivals. I just didn't go to them because I was broke, 18, 19, 20 years old. It probably would have been like, Arctic Monkeys, Coldplay, what is that fucking band that does Snow Patrol? It would be these bands that were not Korn, that were not Limp Bizkit, that were not Rage Against the Machine and Red Hot Chili. And there's nothing, I think that there is something great at some point that Fred Durst is like, hey, if you have problems with yourself, if you have problems with work, just fucking let that shit out. And that's a great message. The problem is you're letting it out on 400,000 people. That's what the issue is. Like, I can get behind what you're saying, but, there's something too when you hear Fred Durst like, and it's like, dude, I can't fucking listen to you, man. I hate.
Oh my gosh, it's ridiculous.
Makes my stomach turn.
I'm telling you, I was that age and I never enjoyed them. It's ridiculous, man.
I had an older brother that loved Limp Bizkit, that loved Korn and Kid Rock. And I was like, dude, put both barrels of a shotgun in my mouth. I cannot listen to this shit. And at 9 years old, I was listening to Bad Religion and Offspring. And like, I was listening to punk bands, growing up, Rancid and shit. So I think that there's parts of like, picking the modern act is something where it's like, well, that's what they say. They're like, oh, we just went with modern acts. It's like, there's a lot other modern acts as well that aren't this like aggressive, and maybe that's kind of, are these the bands that I would have pictured playing at Woodstock in 1999? Like, not when you think Woodstock, you think like, I don't know, Hall & Oates, Jimi Hendrix, Joe Cocker. It's not Rage Against the Machine and, Limp Bizkit and Korn is not what I think of. And I think they clusterfucked a lot of that setup where it's like you watch Alanis Morissette and then it's Limp Bizkit. What the fuck? The flow of it was really, really jarring.
Yeah. It was just like, what are they, because the documentary is right. It's like, what are they trying to do here? Yeah, absolutely, Colin. I completely understand. Sorry, were you still talking?
No. I mean, I wrote like some notes out and stuff, but I don't want to just like shotgun blast all these. We can come back.
No. Before we do move on, I kind of want to talk about Fred Durst and Limp Bizkit, because there was I actually just looked it up before we jumped on, a pretty infamous incident that happened here in 2001, where an obviously an Australian girl was crushed in a mosh pit at the Big Day Out festival. Big Day Out was a big festival that used to happen, and she died as a result of asphyxiation 5 days after being crushed in the mosh pit.
You call yourself a podcaster.
I'm just, it's fucking.
I do that stupid shit all the time.
What we do is not podcasting. I say it all the time, dude. So the coroner's court of New South Wales found that, they found that Limp Bizkit's lead singer Fred Durst, his comments were alarming and inflammatory, and like, it's just insane that happened in 2001. Which is 2 years after this. It's kind of crazy that we're seeing this kind of this is a coroner's court. This is a coroner's court actually on record saying that Fred Durst, I guess, words or what he was saying, or like how he was trying to hype the audience up was inflammatory. I think when a court says it goes, I mean, like, obviously this is the profession that I'm in, but when a court says it becomes a little bit more than speculation, like that maybe what he was saying was too much. Like, I think because now it's on the record. So it's interesting, again, like, I really found that wildly crazy that, 2 years after that happened. And then, like, so they came back apparently in 2012, Limp Bizkit did, to Australia. And apparently at Soundwave, which is kind of like a rival of Big Day Out. So Limp Bizkit gets up at Soundwave and dedicated their set to this person that passed away. Her name was Jessica Michalek. Sorry, it's Polish. I probably pronounced that incorrectly. And he goes on stage, this is a quote, "That son of a bitch promoter from Big Day Out, that fucking asshole threatened us and forced us to go on stage because he said there'd be a riot if we didn't. So with police in our dressing room, those fucking assholes with their hands on us pushing us out on stage, we came out, we played some shit, and we lost a human being named Jessica. So as much as we are here to be with you tonight, this is a tribute to Jessica. Everything we do in Australia is a tribute to your baby. Let's hear it for Jess."
And then they played "It's Off with a Nookie." I'm just joking.
You know what? They probably did. I just find that just an interesting,
totally. Totally. I totally agree with that. I am torn on that. I really am on. I mean, yeah, he was getting the crowd up. I mean, that's what you're supposed to do, right? You're at a fucking music festival and you're a headlining band. I mean, there was never any point where I felt like someone was instigating something. But but at the other time, I'm 21 years old. There's 400,000 of us or whatever there was. I don't even know what the ticket sales were or whatever. But I'm just saying, at the same time, there is a responsibility when you're on stage and you can command people. So I'm not gonna step on either side of that. I'm honestly torn. I'm torn about, like, did he do some things he shouldn't have done, or was he being a performer and entertainer? You know, I don't have a open and closed case on that.
Yeah, well, I think that's a great stance to take, because it takes two to tango. You know, it takes somebody else to pick up the ping pong paddle to play ping pong. It's like if he were to come out there, and I think that part of you goes, hey, you know, you can feel the energy of that crowd. You should know better than to ramp them up to this. But at the same time, that's what the fuck Fred Durst is there for. You know, that's what Kid Rock is there for. Like, you know, at this point, it's not like, oh, who knows what this band is? This is their breakthrough moment. Like, you know what's probably going to happen. Like, it reminded me, like, I think an incident similar, but not exactly similar, where I fall on the line of like, no, that's totally on you, is Axl Rose, the tour with Metallica. Was it like 92 or something? I think, it's when Hetfield got hit with the pyrotechnic, and it fucking, you know, lit him up. And he had to go to the hospital. So Metallica had already they opened for Guns N' Roses. So they had already cut the set short. And then Guns N' Roses comes out. I don't even remember how long they played, but Axl Rose goes, "My throat hurts," and just slams the mic down and walks off. And there's a huge riot and they just destroy the fucking place. And it's like, yeah, like, dude, that's on you. Like, they've already lost, you know, right. Something's already happened to James Hetfield. The energy is just, you know, flammable in this room, and you come out, slam the mic, and the spark just goes off. Like, that's totally, like, he had a horrible habit of doing that. But I think that's a good stance, where it's kind of like, this is not, I think there's a share to kind of go around of like, why is this crowd so angry? Like, why do you want to destroy shit? You know, like, what is the deal with that? I've never been to a show and be like, I just want to fuck shit up. Like, I might jump into a crowd and start shoving people around, but I don't pick up a tool and like start deconstructing things like that. I don't know. You know, totally. That's dumb to me.
That's something that I wanted to ask you, Floyd, because I mean, I'm paraphrasing here, but there was something in the documentary where someone said that you can feel this energy of anger, like this crowd was angry. And, you know, I mean, like, I've been to my fair share of music festivals, and, you know, yes, generally sometimes you can feel a vibe. I've never felt one where it's just anger, but, like, do you recall anything like that? Like, you know, do you recall, like, it being somewhat violent?
I definitely remember this thing, like, where we get there on Friday and Jamiroquai is playing. Do you guys even know that band? Jamiroquai?
Oh, yeah. Nothing left for me to do. So just
Jamiroquai is playing. And there is definitely
That's all right. You guys can go start your own podcast.
There is definitely this, like, festival attitude, right? And, you know, everything from the documentary, I'm not going to recite everything. The water's going bad. Everything's expensive. There's no water. You know what I mean? And there's definitely this thing by Sunday where everyone feels weary. You know what I mean? Everybody is tired and hot. And so I never would have predicted it, but looking back on it, it makes sense. And like I said, in that original, comment I made that, where you asked me to come on, Z, the main stage, the west stage there was an east stage and a west stage. The west stage was like down this hill. It was like where the airport ended. It was down this big sloping hill. And, the last three performers, I think, were Creed, or the last two performers were Creed and then Red Hot Chili Peppers. About the Creed time, well, Jewel was before that, and Jewel had trouble even performing because everybody was screaming, "Show your tits." I mean, it was getting a little ruckus. You know what I mean? And so then about the Creed, we're like, hey, we're going to go down front. So we go down this hill and kind of make our way through the crowd. And so when the Chili Peppers in the end, Anthony Kiedis, he says something like, hey, it looks like Vietnam out there or something like that, where the fires are starting. We had no idea. We were all the way down. We're 200 yards down this hill at the bottom of this, where the stage was. So when they finish and we come back up the hill, that's when we see all hell's broke loose. You know what I mean? There's fires and the towers have fell and there's pretzels being thrown and there's water flying. All that stuff's going on at that point in time. So, but there was no part of us that was holy shit, we're in trouble. It was just kind of yeah, this is a festival and people are going crazy. You know what I mean? So there was no part of us that were thinking, there was no part of us that ever thought, oh my gosh, this is going to make international news. You know what I mean? It was just kind of yeah, this is a festival and there's young kids doing crazy stuff. So the fact that when I say we, I mean the 100,000 of us or whatever, that kind of made it to that point. Looking back, it doesn't surprise me. At the time, I had no thought of it. I had no thoughts on it. But there was a part of us that were hey, it's time to go. You know what I mean? There's fires and people are tearing down the walls and things are going on. So there was a part of us that were this might get a little crazy, but I never dreamed it would be a documentary 20 years after that. You know what I mean?
And after, so in hindsight, let's say maybe a couple of weeks later, or, when obviously Woodstock hit the news, did you ever think about oh yeah, it actually kind of was like that, did you have that feeling?
When the stuff started coming out about the sexual assaults, all of us there was 5 of us that went, all of us were just yeah, I can totally see that happening. You know what I mean? There's no thing where I think that was exaggerated or something like that. And then even the thing, there was stuff that happened with that water. That water was so big, man. I just, it's impossible for me to really explain $4 for a bottle of water in 1999. You know what I mean?
Oh, you do.
$4 for a bottle of water now is crazy. $4 for a bottle of water in 1999 was that was the thing that all of us, one of the things I remember, the other price I remember, it was $12 for a 12-inch pizza. Now that just is kind of okay, it's $12 for a 12-inch pizza and you can eat a pizza and that's what you need for the day. But you need more than a bottle of water in a day. You know what I mean? And that was the thing where even when we walked in, we're holy shit, it's $4 for a bottle of water. You know what I mean? So that was, and then there was people that took the bottles of water and there was chain link fences and stuff, and they would make they would push them through and make dollar signs. You know what I mean? MTV with dollar signs in between it. You know what I mean? The bottles of water and stuff like that. Yeah. So we knew and that was late Friday. People were already doing that. So we knew from the very beginning that everybody was kind of this water thing's bullshit. You know what I mean? Because it was the same thing, in the documentary, the drinking fountains and the portalettes, you didn't even want to get near that shit after 3:00 on Friday. It was just a fucking mess. You know what I mean? The portalettes, that were handicapped, where they were a little room. You know what I mean? You walk into Portalette where it's a little room for handicap.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, there was just shit along the walls where people were just like leaning up against the wall and shit. It was like, you didn't even want to get near that stuff. So like in that documentary where they're like, there's plenty of water. Nobody is going near that. There's just like people bathing in it and all this crazy stuff. So well,
and the sewerage, right? I mean, because the sewerage ruptured.
Oh yeah.
The fucking, rolling around and shit. And they don't even
totally. You know what we did? And it's crazy. We never saw anyone else do this. So every morning, so Saturday and Sunday morning, we got up and you could go in and out as long as you had the bracelet. And we would go in our car and we would just drive 3 miles into actual Rome, New York. And we paid $5 and went to the YMCA. You could be a guest and go in the YMCA. Nice. So we just drove to the YMCA, took showers, did our bathroom stuff, ate at a restaurant in Rome, New York, and then just drove back. Never saw anyone else in that YMCA.
I wonder why. Yeah. That's interesting. I mean, like, yeah, they're just not getting out of hell.
Yeah.
It's just like, let's keep spending the night here.
That was kind of one of the things that I wrote down was like, you can leave, right? Like, you can just get the fuck out, like, and go somewhere for a minute and then come back. Like, you can come and go. So I'm glad you said that. I was like, it's not like this is, you're being held here. Like, yeah.
But at the end of the day, I'll tell you guys, it was a great time. you know what I mean? For me, and now maybe it wouldn't be for a woman or a girl or, whatever those certain situations are, but if I could go back, I'd do it again. I went to a crazy music festival. You know what I mean? I had a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, at the time, like, if you enjoy it and that's your experience, then, I mean, more power to you, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, Bonnaroo happens about an hour or more from where I live, and I've never gone. I would not do good in the sun. I just really wouldn't. I seriously, I would probably get I don't know. I'd be too afraid that I would dehydrate or get just get burnt so bad and just fucked up. Like, it just terrifies me. Like, the crowds and stuff don't really bother me. I'm sure that I would appreciate some of that. Like, there was the year that they had like Jack White and stuff. I was actually kind of interested in going. I was like, oh, that sounds kind of Conan came. Awesome. Conan was there with Jack White, and I was like, I don't know. Like, but
now can you do like a one day with those?
I'm pretty sure you can. I think you can do, because I think it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
And you could do if there was this bands on Friday that you wanted to watch, you could just do a Friday ticket or something.
Yeah, exactly. I'm pretty sure that's correct. But we knew friends that went, and they would literally get like an RV, and they would just park the RV and go, take a couple of hits of acid and go running around, and then come back 12 hours later and be like, all right, I'm gonna take a shower and go to sleep. Because they were like, we're not going and sleeping in the dirt and being uncomfortable the whole time. Like, that's just not, I'm not paying 200 or, I mean, now I don't even know how much a ticket to Bonnaroo costs. A lot of money. But it's crazy. Just comparing it to other music festivals, I think that the documentary that I feel like the level of what this documentary, and it's a good documentary, and I like the fact that they focus on a lot of like the vandalism and stuff. They focus on a lot of just the destruction, like just destroying stuff. But this doesn't compare to anything to like Altamont with the Rolling Stones and the Hells Angels, like where the fucking Hells Angels stabbed some woman to death. Like, Jesus Christ, dude, and like that, to me, that's the level of like this documentary is extremely serious, and it feels like, it was Woodstock 99 as bad as Altamont? Probably not. I can't say I wasn't at either one of those, but it feels like Woodstock 99, the documentary has the tone of what I would expect a documentary of like Altamont to have, because that was fucking horrible. The Hells Angels was their security. What the fuck, man? That's insane. Level. That's fucking insane. And like 4 people died. Like, there was a hit and run. Somebody got stabbed to death. One dude, I think high on acid, like drowned himself accidentally. Like, that's fucking nuts.
Totally.
And that's not to take away from anything that happened at Woodstock 99, but that was the kind of like, dude, if you think this is bad, Altamont is what like, that's the penultimate of like failure festivals to me. That was, I think they did that because what was that, 1970, I think, is when they did, it was a free concert, but I think they saw how Woodstock did, and they wanted to replicate that. And they wanted to do it like very quickly and for not a whole lot of money, and that's what fucked up.
Just
Altamont.
capitalize on it.
Yeah. It's an interesting story for sure, because the Rolling Stones were like the big band. I think that I don't know if it was the special guest, Grateful Dead, Santana, Jefferson Airplane, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. That's a lot of fucking big names for 1969, 1970.
Big time.
Yeah, that was December 6th of 1969. So they were definitely trying to jump on the coattails of that.
Yeah.
Woodstock
fame.
Yeah.
So one of the things that really interested me was the social context at the time, and that impacting everyone's, I guess, mood and feeling. You've got MTV, and then you've got just all these like weird shit happening. Obviously, Columbine. And like, do you guys reckon that these are actual like factors that played a part in it? Because like, I know that they are trying to give us a reason as to why, the crowd is made up of all white men. I mean, mostly white young men, who are angry, and furious at something. So, I mean, like, do you think that those kind of like outside influences played a part in that? Or is it just a combination of things that were there at the festival, like the hate, like the alcohol, like the drugs,
like the group because you were there and you're a little bit older than you're a little bit older than me, so I'm curious what you're because I was not culturally cognizant at the time. I was not taking in the world as probably as much as you were.
I think it's a combination of things. So I think if you look at rock and roll in general, it's usually white guys. So I'm a huge Aerosmith fan, and I was back then. And Aerosmith was originally slated to be the closer for where the Chili Peppers were at the end of the night. And why I even mentioned that was the Aerosmith used to refer to their fans as the Blue Army. And they refer to their fans as the Blue Army because it was all men wearing denim, like leather or jean jackets and blue jeans and things like that. So I think that kind of follows most rock and roll bands. I don't think that if you look at Megadeth or Metallica, if you were to actually be able to gauge like the sex of the majority of their fans, it's probably male. So I think just the basis of we're having a rock and roll concert, you're going to get more males. Now that doesn't that's not an excuse in any way for the behavior that happened, but I think if you put it in the context of we're having a rock and roll concert, we're all out here in the middle of nowhere, we're drinking and drugging and whoring and doing all these other things, I think it lends itself to these things that could probably go off the rails. Does that make sense?
That's a good point. Yeah.
And so I think that if you look at something, as you mentioned before, I believe, Colin, like Bonnaroo, or even, you get into Lollapalooza or something like that, I think those festivals are more aimed at a multicultural
absolutely
fan base than if you're having a concert that is featuring Kid Rock and Megadeth and Metallica, and you know what I mean? So I think those bands at the time were bands that brought in more of an element that had more of a likelihood of going to left field. Does that, you understand what I'm saying?
It does make sense. And you can tell, from the lineup that they made a attempt to reach out to other cultures. I mean, like, you've got James Brown, DMX, you've got Ice Cube. So, but like, I mean, like, you can't dispute the fact that it is largely made up of rock bands and metal bands. And, it's, what about you, Colin?
I think, when you pick those, like I said, if you had done this when I graduated high school in 2008, if you had done this almost 10 years after this, if they did Woodstock 2009, 2008, what bands would be there? It wouldn't be Rage Against the Machine. It wouldn't be maybe Metallica, maybe something like that. Metallica's still pretty big, maybe Metallica, maybe a band similar to Metallica. Who would it'd probably be Coldplay, Walk the Moon. It would be very different from just something 10 years prior. And I think that they touch on something interesting culturally when they show the clip from Fight Club with Brad Pitt saying, hey, we were all told we were going to be rock stars and movie stars. And now we've grown up and realized we're not. We're very pissed off about that. And I think that, yeah, that is part of it. And if you I do find it ironic, Brad Pitt, one of the biggest actors, and this gorgeous man telling everybody, we realized we weren't going to be actors. I'm like, well, I mean, you are. The book is really good. Chuck Palahniuk's a fucking great writer.
I've read that book 3 or 4 times. I absolutely
his
love
shit,
it.
man. It's a page. All of his books are page turners. But there's something that I think that they try and kind of look back at a 2021 lens, and I think that that's fine. But I think also if you take a drink every time the words white male are said together, you'll be drunk as shit by the end of this thing. And I'm not saying that's good or bad. I think that it's brutally I'm not trying to be political or, any kind of social commentary, but you look out and it's nothing but white people. I think maybe it's like when we talked about Carrie, Stephen King said the first time he saw that in a theater, it was him and his wife, and they were showing a double feature. It was like a Red Fox. It was like a Red Fox double feature with or was it Red Fox? It was in Sanford and Son. I'm fucking drawing a blank. Not Red Fox. Oh God, I can't remember. I'm drawing a blank, but basically it was in a predominant.
No, that's yeah.
Am I
Red
Red Fox? Okay, I always get confused.
Yeah.
But he said that it was like an all black theater. He's like, we look like 2 grains of salt in a pepper shaker. I was like, that's fucking funny. It's just objectively, hey, everybody here is black, and the thing is, everybody had this. Not everybody, but most predominantly, this is a white male show. There's no arguing that. I mean, you look at the fucking crowd. You can't really argue that.
Yeah,
but I do think that I think that they're trying to find an answer to why are there all these white guys so angry? And it's like, and that's a fair question, but I don't know if the documentary ever came up. I don't like the fact that they bring up a question they never really fully provide an answer to. And I think that they're even asking the question, why are all these guys so angry? Why are they breaking shit? And to me, I think culturally, I was 9 years old at the time. Yes, we called our friends the F word, we called each other fags. That's we did it. I'm not proud of it. We did it all the time. I grew up in the South.
We did it all the time too.
Right. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to sit here and say the F word. I own it. I fucking said it. I don't say it anymore. I that was something that at the time, you're 9 years old. What do? You make fun of your friends. You call them that word. You say something about fucking their mom. You hit them in the nuts. That was kind of that mentality for me, at that age. I'm not saying that every guy was out doing that in 1999 to 2004 or whatever, but that was something I grew out of very quickly. And I think that when you look, what was going to be the next big TV show around this time? What was the cultural phenomenon that blasted off right around 1999 and MTV was right there for it? Was Jackass. And I think that when you look right around this time, Super Troopers is coming out, American Pie, Not Another Teen Movie, Jackass.
It's a good
you
point.
have a very immature mindset for any kind of youthful, American Pie. He literally streamed, that woman has no idea she's being streamed for a minute. And then I think she finally sees it. And I think that's what happens. I haven't seen American Pie in a long time. But the fact that
that's right. That's Shannon Elizabeth. She's amazing.
But the fact that
her accent was on point.
I know this guy's against the point, and Colin's trying to make
no, but that's exactly, at first it's like, dude, you're broadcasting this woman without her consent. As a 9-year-old, I didn't think twice about that. I was like, look at those tits. I was fucking 9.
Oh no, it's hilarious. Yeah, absolutely.
So I think, sorry, I'm taking a sip of my beer. I think that there definitely is something to be said about the mentality of the average, maybe it's not teenagers at this show, but they are extremely young adults. At 21, I pretty much acted the same way I did at 18. There's not maybe a little bit of difference here and there, but mentally, I was pretty much still the same person. And I think that there's something that, ultimately, and I'm not saying why do you bring up the whole white male thing if you don't have an answer to it. You can ask the question without having an answer. You leave the viewer to come up with their own, answer to that. Why are all these guys so angry and destroying shit? But I got to be honest, that's something that we did when we were 9, 10, 12 years old. You go into a abandoned building, throw rocks into the windows, and it's like, I'm not saying it's okay. I'm just saying that like we broke a lot of shit when I were kids, when we were kids, we destroyed a lot of stuff just because we could, like just because it was there. I remember going out in the backyard and hitting old TVs with baseball bats and watching them explode, shooting toilets with a gun, just junk in our backyard. And I think that there is something, that's the only thing that I don't love about the documentary is it starts to lean into that political bit that I think that you wouldn't, that is a lens that they would not have looked at in 2010 or 2015. It's not really till like 2019, 2020, 2021 that question kind of gets brought up. And I think that's fine. And that's something that probably does need to happen is you look and say, why are all these people breaking shit? But I also think where the documentary fails is when you bring up that proposition and you do ask those questions and they're fair questions, but you also need the other side. I want to see the Floyds who are like, I'm not fucking breaking shit, dude. Like I'm getting the fuck out of here.
Right.
Not everybody there was turning into the leader of the vagabonds in Lord of the Flies, and that's the thing that kind of irks me a little bit because if you notice, I think that a big failure of this festival was the security. It's a fucking joke, man. Like the 3-hour shit that they did and they got licensed. That's ridiculous, man. Mm-hmm. But you notice when the state troopers show up, everybody just like disbands. Everybody's like, okay, we're getting the fuck out of here. And I feel like if that had been the case from the get-go, would things have gotten this bad? I don't think so. I think if you had a tighter security and you had guys who were not just like turning their shirts inside out and going into the crowd just so they could get some pussy or something, that's problematic. And I think that when you fail to keep 400,000 people safe from themselves and safe from each other, that's a failure. It's a failure on the festival for not putting that tight of security, but also it's also a failure just in like, why do you want to just fuck shit up? Like, why do you want to break shit? And that's just something that I'm not saying is okay. I'm just saying that at the time it's not innocent. Oh, we just went out and, we broke a mirror in mom's room. No, it's not that. These people are like caught, like tearing shit down and making fires. And I feel like part of that might be the whole, like, hey, it's let's take this to another level. Like, where can we take this to? And I feel like that starts happening around the early 2000s to 2010. I feel like things start going like escalation, like 11 Batman Begins. He's like, we get bulletproof vests, they get armor piercing bullets. It's like, and it's this escalation of, when I was a kid in school, you got into a fight, you were cool with the kid the next day. You shook hands and you were kind of over it. My fiance is a teacher. She had a kid who picked another kid up and tried to throw him over a railing onto the gym floor that was like 30 feet below. And it's like, holy shit, you tried to fucking murder that kid. So I feel like part of it is like, is this escalation? And why is it escalation? I think it poses some interesting questions, but I feel like it's a very easy thing for them to go like, oh, white male. It's like, yeah, that is part of the problem. But I feel like that's a very surface level answer of like, I mean, what was there's a big like rap festival that they do. And I can't remember what the like Loudfest or I can't remember what the name of it is, but it is a predominantly black audience. And there is definitely violence. There's shooting, there's like drive-bys and stuff. Do I look at them and go, oh, what's wrong with black people? It's like, no, that's not at all. That's not the right thing to do. Not at all. And it's like, what is in this music that causes people to kind of have that kind of reaction to it? That I think that's more of a better question of like, what in this music makes you want to break shit? Why do you want to break shit? Is it something at home? Is it something, what exactly is the issue? So I think it raises some interesting questions, but I feel like that's kind of a scapegoat thing to throw on with a 2021 lens. That was just my kind of 2 cents. It's like, I don't know. I feel like this is getting a little too political. And I think that you can't downplay the vandalism. You cannot downplay the sexual assault, but I know a white guy who was there that caused no problem. So I'm kind of like, don't lump everybody into that shit. I don't like that. I find that borderline offensive.
That's a good point. I was listening to and I know I've brought it up a bunch of times now. Dax Shepard's podcast, Armchair Expert, and he had his wife on. And they were talking about watching this documentary, and she was talking about kind of like group mentality, like groupthink, like like where it's like, if it's okay, like if it's okay for like three of you guys to be doing one thing, and you guys are all in like simpatico, then the fourth guy will join in, the fifth guy will join in, and then the sixth guy will join in. So I'm wondering if that, like that would absolutely play a factor. Like, like if people are seeing other people do, like we were talking about like the documentary talks about them breaking down the fence, right? I mean, like, there's that big wall or fence or whatever, and they break it down, and you see people joining in just because the other guys are doing it, and because it looks fun. Like it's just this like herd sort of like mentality where it's just like, we're gonna get together and just break shit because we're all doing it. We're all getting in on this. What do you think about that, Floyd?
Yeah, I mean, as soon as someone throws that rock, then okay, well, I can throw a rock. You know what I mean? I'm saying it's. I think it's atmospheric and music related, as you were saying, Colin. I think it's both. So if you have a situation that is volatile and you add in, how do I want to describe the music? Ruckus. You know what I mean? Like, you add in this music and you add in this, we don't have water and everybody's on drugs, and it's kind of,
it's a powder keg,
it seems inevitable. But to your point though, I think it's inevitable at that point in time. I don't think that happens 10 years later. You know what I mean? So it's I think it was just kind of something that came to a head at that point, and there's no excuse for it. But to your point though, Colin, as well, like, 10% of the people were doing that.
Right. Yeah.
Of the 200,000 or whatever it was. I don't even, what is the number? Does anybody know what was the attendance? I have no idea.
I heard like 350, but then people were sneaking in. I'm like, so it's probably closer to 400, I guess.
Yeah, Wikipedia says 400,000 plus. I mean, I don't know what that means.
Back to what you were saying though, Colin, that kind of when you were talking about the security thing is totally legit. When we got there on Friday, so there was 5 of us. 2 of them were underage. 2 of the guys were underage, so they were trying to smuggle in liquor. And when we got there, they were going through bags and stuff enough that those guys took that liquor out and threw it in like a trash can or whatever. But as soon as we got in there, everybody had liquor and weed and whatever. Right. You know what I mean? So, and then, as I mentioned, when we went to the YMCA or whatever, come Saturday morning, and we just walked out and walked in. There was nothing. There was nobody checking anything. Yeah. You know what I mean? We just walked in and walked out. It was so what you're saying with the security, it did totally and utterly break down.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, it's a powder keg of a lot of different things, like what is I can't remember the guy's name, one of the 2 guys that puts it on, but he's like, yeah, so, we have all these fires. We stopped the Chili Peppers. We're like, hey, we need you to come out there and kind of settle everybody down while we get the fire trucks out there. What do they fucking play next? Fire. Literally, it's the next song they play.
There's a very interesting, I don't know if you guys caught it. There's a very interesting moment in that documentary where Anthony Kiedis, for a second, he says like, yeah, you want to play it? Somebody says you want to play it, and Anthony Kiedis says, hell yeah, or fuck yeah, or something like that. I think they made the decision to play that fire at that moment. Right. I don't think that was planned. Watch that documentary. Anthony Kiedis has a moment where he says, where somebody says, are you sure you want to play it? And he's like, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
And then they play fire. I thought that was very interesting, which I didn't know at the time, of course.
Fuck Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Now, because I'm a big music nerd, there's a great like Faith No More Red Hot Chili Peppers like feud that went on for years. It's been
feud. Oh yeah, I didn't know.
Oh, it's kind of blown out of proportion a little bit. But Anthony Kiedis got because it's Mike Patton who rocks Faith No More as the lead singer, but he also does Mr. Bungle. And apparently people were saying like, hey, Chili Peppers and Faith No More sound really similar. And he got Mr. Bungle kicked off of all these festivals like years later because he was like, oh, they're too similar. I was like, fuck you, dude. You're an asshole, man. That's why I love Faith No More. Fuck Chili Peppers. Except for maybe like, I love Stadium Arcadium and Californication. Those are fucking great albums. But yeah, I think that it's a bit of negligence on the artist part of, you know, hey, maybe this is not the time to come out, you know, Kid Rock coming out and calling Monica Lewinsky a hoe and Fred Durst, you know, telling people to break shit and playing fire. Not good. But at the same time, it's like how, you know, it's a failure on the people setting it up. It's a failure on the people who are attending it, you know, where you have this, you know, like you said, 10% of people that are destroying the shit. 10% of 400,000 is still a lot of fucking people, you know, whether it's the majority or not, that's still a small fucking army, you know? So absolutely, it's like those people, because it doesn't matter. You take a group of 400,000 to 500,000 people. To me, it doesn't really matter what kind of, you know, demographic that you're from. If you let those people loose and you have lax security, somebody is going to try and fuck shit up. Like somebody is deliberately going to try and sexually assault someone or rob someone or just fuck shit up. I think it's inevitable. So I feel like it's kind of a failure on all fronts. I don't feel like you can pass the buck off to just Fred Durst or just the promoters and the people who set it up. It's everybody took an equal bite of that pie.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes this what makes the documentary so interesting, or Woodstock so interesting, is that it took a lot of perfect storms to come together to create this giant perfect storm. Like, you know.
Well, I mean, like let's say this. Like, what do you guys know about Woodstock '94?
Green Day and the mud.
You know, there was a Woodstock '94, right?
I remember Green Day slinging because Mike Dirnt from Green Day was so covered in mud that a security guard like tackled him because he didn't know he was the bass player for Green Day. And I was like, oh, that's fucking great, dude.
Oh, that's funny as.
I'm just saying it's crazy that kind of went off without a hitch, really. I'm sure there were sexual assaults. I'm sure things happened, but it wasn't 99. You know what I mean? So to your point, there was it was a moment in time where something clicked the wrong way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm interested. I don't want to spend too much time on this particular point, but like, you know, the promoters talked about how they wanted to kind of like recreate the 64 in 99. Like, you know, there was like a push to make it more like the 64.
69. I threw you off with the 94. Oh, 69. Yeah.
Yeah, 69. Yeah, sorry. So, which 69.
That's going back to that fucking mentality.
Fucking children. But like, yeah, they said that there was a push to make it more like the 60s Woodstock, which was interesting.
How? Limp Bizkit?
Yeah, like why? Like
I thought
right, exactly.
I thought that was one of the most interesting aspects of that documentary, where they kind of pointed out like, hey, 69 wasn't perfect either. Yeah. You know what I mean? That was fucked up too. And there was bad shit that happened, but we all did the peace, love, and music. That's kind of that's the historic view of that. You know what I mean? But you get 300,000 people together, whatever, bad shit's going to happen on the periphery. You know what I mean? So I thought that was one of the most poignant parts of that documentary, to say like, yeah, 99 was bad, but 69 wasn't perfect.
You know, I'm sorry. I'm looking over just really quick. This is how different that these, because I'm looking at 94's set and I'm looking at 94's, you know, the people that are playing. Let me see here. Blues Traveler, Collective Soul, Candlebox, Sheryl Crow. That's on Friday. Then it's at Joe Cocker, Blind Melon, Cypress Hill, Rollins Band, Crosby, Stills, Nash, Nine Inch Nails, Metallica, Aerosmith, Melissa Etheridge.
Damn, I want to go to that.
Dude, for real. And then the next night, what do you got? Let me see here. Spin Doctors, Bob Dylan, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Peter Gabriel, a very, you know, Green Day, Santana. This is a very, very different lineup from what you saw in 99. Those bands, none of those bands and the 94 lineup go nearly as hard as Korn or Limp Bizkit or Kid Rock. Like none of those bands, like Green Day, maybe, you know, that might be the hardest hardest act that they had. I don't know. I don't know every single artist on here, but just from the names I read, it was like it doesn't really seem like it was just that, you get Rage Against the Machine, like those guys will burn the fucking house down. Like they're an amazing band in the first place, but just that energy, Zach De La Rocha, it just has that something in him that just like, we had a group when my senior year, a friend of mine named Odie, just got a group together and they did Sleep Now in the Fire by Rage Against the Machine. I don't know if you've ever heard that, but it is a fucking angry song, and they perform that. And I mean, we had about 12 to 1,300 kids that went to our school. I mean, and that place was like everybody. I mean, it's not like people up and jumping and stuff, but people were in their seats kind of like, dude, they are fucking going hard. And once you kind of put that out there and people connect to that, I feel like that can be another part of that powder keg. I'm not saying it's the band's fault, but I think again, you look at the performers and they're like, we wanted contemporary artists. It's like, well, you fucking got them, I guess, Yeah.
I mean, there's an energy that's built, you know what I mean? I mean, there's an energy that Bob Dylan puts into the crowd, or there's an energy that Aerosmith puts in the crowd, and then there's an energy that Rage Against the Machine puts in the crowd, or Limp Bizkit, you know what I mean? And I'm not saying it's not their fault that something bad may happen, but it's a different energy.
For sure. I mean, look at Queen had shows where they had 600,000 people, and you never had an incident like this. I mean, they were doing 100,000, 200,000 people shows for decades. And I think that it really kind of comes down to the kind of music. When you hear that live, when you look and it's nothing but bodies and there's nobody holding you accountable, I don't know. Maybe it really does turn into Lord of the Flies for some people. Hey, who's going to care if I grope this chick's tits? There's 9 people doing it and there's no cop around. So fuck it, Right. It's an interesting, it's an interesting conundrum,
So look, this is how I want to close off this episode. I'm going to ask a question. We're going to go around the room. What is your personal worst experience at a music event?
Ooh. I might have to think about that.
And yeah, no, that's all right. Floyd, are you thinking as well? If you guys
I am thinking. Do you have yours, Z?
All right. Yeah, I'll go with mine. And that'll give you guys some time to think about it. So, 2015. I was at a rave, actually. I guess that's what you would call it. And basically, there was like all these big artists, I think the crowd was something probably like 15, 20,000 people. It was an indoor event, standing, obviously. And, the thing about these like raves, especially in Sydney, there's a big, obviously a big issue with ecstasy, right? I mean, obviously there's a massive issue with ecstasy. So much so that our state premier, I guess would be your equivalent, would be the governor, started like pretty much like shutting down these shows because there would be deaths at these shows. And at this particular show, I was literally scheduled to fly out to the US the day after. Like I was like that was my holiday, right? And basically I was like, all right guys, like it's getting pretty late, I'm gonna have to go soon, blah blah. And it got to the last DJ and we were really excited to see this guy. And someone died in the crowd.
Shit.
And this DJ didn't come on. But like, dude, like they were like and they were like this guy died not too far from us. Like he overdosed. And it was pretty wild because they brought in the ambulances. The police were like all over. And yeah, absolutely, they shut the festival down like right there and then. And they just heard it and kicked everyone out. That was probably the most wildest experience I've had at a music festival. I mean, because obviously, like someone died, like literally not that far from you. Like it's just
shit.
insane.
You should have gone last. I can't.
And it was just it was just a huge like. It's so much confusion going on. Like everyone's like, "What the fuck? Like, what's happening? Like, what's going on? Why? Like, where's Brian Carney, who's the DJ, the last one that's supposed to come on?" And it was crazy, man. I've had like other experiences too. Like, Floyd, you were talking about like you lifted a girl up on your shoulder. That happened to me too. Except I fucked it up once, and I fucked up my back. Honestly, dude, like I lifted with my back and not my knees. And I think, honestly, looking back at it, I think I've been paying for it ever since. Like, you know, my back has never felt the same. But, you know, like, you know, I like being up at the front, you know, like as close to the artist as possible. Like, I like that thing. So, once I got a fucking water bottle, like, hurled at my head, you know, like, obviously not on purpose, like, someone just threw the bottle and it just managed to hit me, but, like, yeah. But I mean, like, other than that, like, my experiences with music festivals have been pretty smooth. I honestly think I'm out of that game now. Like, you know, dude, my joints hurt and I'm way too unfit for it now, and I just can't. You need physical stamina to be able to do those things, and I can't. Floyd, you got yours in the can?
Yeah, so I grew up in southeastern Ohio. So I often tell people, like, if you know Ohio or the U.S., you can't think like Columbus, Cincinnati, Cleveland. You have to think more like Kentucky, West Virginia. I grew up like in the hills. So I grew up with a lot of country music. And I love a lot of country music. So I went to a festival one time with a family, and it was like one of these like Jamboree in the Hills or like one of these country jamborees or something. There's all these bands and all these artists and everything, you know, Tim McGraw and all these people. And this storm rolled in, dude. And we're like in this crazy valley. This storm rolled in and it was like weird gray, green, like weird looking sky.
Yeah.
And at one point in time, and then like the band goes off the stage and then there's an announcement, and this is there's 50,000 people or whatever standing in this field. There's an announcement that just says, "Get on the ground."
Oh,
like everyone get on the ground. Like it was like, and dude, everybody is in like RVs and tents. Like nobody has anywhere to go. And there is this crazy ass storm rolling in that might be a tornado or whatever. Everybody's freaking out. The storm rolls through. No tornado comes, but I'm just telling you, the energy of that concert never came back. The people did not come back to the stage. You know what I mean? Even when the band kicks up 2 hours later or whatever, and it was legitimately scary. Like nobody knew what to do. If a tornado would have came through there, it killed 20,000 people. You know what I mean? It was like, it was totally crazy, but that was probably my worst experience at a concert / you know, like get together for music or what have you.
What was that? What was it? The Van Perry? Do you remember that? The video of like the tornado coming through and an outside show, and it just like starts ripping the stage apart and shit, and people were running. I think it's like the band. I can't remember. Sorry.
The Van Perry's a band, which is funny because I just went and saw them like 2 weeks ago.
Oh, really?
They were actually in my town like a couple weeks ago. I went and saw them, but I don't know the instance you're talking about.
I can't remember the band, but yeah, that I've seen video of something like that, and it's terrifying. I haven't really had any, you know, what's the worst experience? I haven't really ever had like a bad experience at a concert, but I haven't really gone to a lot of concerts, especially very big ones. I do have a band that I followed for a little bit. Religiously called Mute Math. I still love them. They're still one of my favorite bands. I've seen them 5 times, but they always come to like, you know, they came to like the Ryman in Nashville. They came to like Work Play Theater in Birmingham. Like they play smaller places. So kind of the smaller the place, sometimes it doesn't really get crazy like that. You know, saw Coheed and Cambria, no problem. Saw the Wombats, no problem. Saw Biffy Clyro, no problem. Like never had any problem because they're smaller shows. Probably the biggest show I went to was Chili Peppers in Memphis at the FedEx Forum or FedEx something. I don't know. But right next to the venue, I mean, literally you walk out the door and you're on Beale Street. So, you know, I was a lot younger then. I think this is when like Rain Dance Maggie and stuff came out, that whole album. I can't remember, but I know that I was riding with a friend of mine and then 2 guys I didn't know that were friends of his. I didn't know them at all. They were nice, you know, and I, you know, he had known them for years. So everything was cool, but we get about 20 minutes away from, you know, the venue, and the guy who was driving busts out this like bottle of Jack and starts cracking it open, and he's driving with his and I was like, what the fuck? And like, you know, okay, like, hey, I'm down, you know, can we park first? Like, can we get somewhere? And literally, we're just passing this bottle back and forth in the car, and we're 20 minutes from the thing, you know, and we're all glip, glip, pass it, glip, glip. So, you know, by the time we even get to the door, I don't know, we've probably got 3 or 4 shots of Jack in us, you know, each. So we're way up in the fucking nosebleeds. Our seats are dog shit. I don't care. I'm kind of drunk at this point. And we meet a couple of our friends there, you know, that met us there at the show. And, you know, I get a couple of tall boys, a couple of, you know, tall beers. I'm just kind of sipping on them. And somebody nudges me and passes the joint. And I was like, I looked down and I was like, whose is this? You know, cause I don't know. I don't smoke. You know, I don't fucking know where this came from. I'm not, you know, I wasn't born yesterday and who knows what the fuck is in the shit. And another friend of a friend that had tagged along was like, oh, it's mine. It's cool. I was like, okay, cool. So we started passing it back and forth. Dude, by the end of that show, I was fucking 3 sheets to the wind. I'd had probably 4 beers. They brought the bottle in with them like we had supposed to. And I mean, I'm like too afraid to even walk to the bathroom because I'm like, I'm going to fall down. And Chili Pepper starts playing Under the Bridge. And dude, when I tell you, like, nobody had a cell phone out, everybody brought out lighters and they just played it like acoustic the whole time. I'm not a huge Chili Peppers fan anymore. You know, I kind of think or Anthony Kiedis is kind of a dick. But separate the art from the artist, it was a great show. He had a fucking cast on his leg from the knee down and he was still, you know, doing his whole Anthony Kiedis thing. And that was an amazing moment because we were so far up that you could see everybody and I don't ever want to feel. It's like, dude, that was a very cool moment.
Sometimes I feel like
dude, I don't. When it hit, you could watch. It was like all of these lighters go up. So the show's awesome. Over. It's cool. We go out on Beale Street and we're like, hey, let's go get a beer. I'm like, all right. And it's like, man, I really got to pee though. And one of the 4 guys just takes off running down Beale Street for whatever reason. So we all started following him. We all started running down Beale Street, like 3 sheets to the wind. And I remember we get to a point where we're like, dude, where is he? We kind of lost him in the crowd and like, that's not good. And we look over and he's just peeing on the front of a building. And we're like, well, I gotta pee. So the 3 of us just run over. It's like some big bank or something. And so we run up these steps and we pee on the front of this building. And then we run off and we're just running around like the side streets of Beale Street. And eventually we hit a Waffle House and we get something to eat. And we're kind of sobering up and stuff. And we look down and one of the guys has blood on his shirt. Not a lot, you know, looked like somebody got a bloody nose. And I think his name was Chris. And we were like, Chris, like, are you bleeding? And he starts like, and he lifts up his shirt and not a scratch on him, dude. Somebody else's blood is on him and he has no idea how he got this blood on him. So we get up, we're walking away from Waffle House and we get into the car and somebody looks over and the other guy, I think his name was Cole, and somebody looks and the back of his arm is just like the skin is just gone. Something happened and he wiped out and didn't tell anybody. It was his blood all over the front of this guy's shirt. And I just remember being like, dude, never been to Memphis, never saw the Chili Peppers, never pissed on a building in public, and certainly have never played DNA detective at a Waffle House in Memphis at 2:00 in the morning, you know? But that was not a bad incident. My first concert I saw Rancid when I was 15 or 16. And I was meeting my brother because he was like, listen, I'll drop you off and pick you up, but I'm not going to the venue. It's going to be packed. Can you meet me across the bridge? And I was like, sure. So this girl is there, and this is the age nobody has cell phones quite yet with like good cameras. She's taking pictures with like a digital camera, and she was like, "Hey, do you mind taking pictures for me?" I was like, "Sure." So I took pictures for her, and she was like, "Do you mind walking me back to my car? Because I'm a little sketched out." I don't think she knows I'm 15 because I look like I'm 20. You know, I look like an adult. I have facial hair. I'm like 6'4", and I'm walking her back to her car. And she's like, yeah, it can be kind of sketchy, like out here at night, like especially, you know, down here in Nashville. And it's like, no, I get it. Like, I wouldn't want you to walk off by yourself anyway. She's like, oh, that's really sweet. And blah, blah, blah. And she kind of starts talking to me. And she's like, yeah, at these shows, I just make sure. And somehow I don't even really remember how we got onto it. But she's like, yeah, at these shows, I never wear underwear. And I was like, what? And she like kind of hikes up her skirt and has these like it doesn't show everything, but has these like garter belts on, like fishnets, like hot ass punk chick. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. And I was like, I mean, it sucks. I'm 15. And she was like, what? And I remember, I remember the turn and walk away. Like, I remember her being like, bye. And she just fucking walked out. I don't think she had any idea. And she had, cause I had taken pictures with her in the band. So she was like, hey, you jump in some, I'll take pictures for you. I'll email them to you. Never heard anything from her. Never got any pictures from my first concert. If I had just kept my mouth shut, I would have banged some rando in Nashville and probably gotten a VD when I was 15. But I was like, that's gotta be some kind of like, divine intervention, legend. But I also look back and like, dude, my brother just left me at a venue at like 15 or 16 in Nashville. I'd never been to Nashville hardly. I'd never really gone to a concert before. So that was a very weird experience. But they were all very nice. We got to meet them after the show. Rancid, they're very, very nice guys.
That's cool.
Well,
nice. I stole a rickshaw once in Nashville.
Okay. All right.
I really did.
I just pictured Kramer running around New York with Newman in the back.
Yeah, I stole it. There was like these rickshaws sitting there, and I wanted to get a taxi or something, and no one was there, so I just got on it and started riding, and then I just dropped it. I was worried that I would be on camera or something, but I actually did steal a rickshaw.
Nice.
Holy shit! Nice. How was the handling,
dude? There was like 4 of them sitting there. It was almost like a little taxi thing, like where they parked or whatever, and they were just sitting. I couldn't believe they weren't locked or anything. But
now they got
hopefully the
scooters everywhere in Nashville. Hopefully
I can't still be charged with
today. That is the most powerful thing that Floyd's ever driven. All right. Well, look. How do we close an episode like this? Because I mean, it's just like we've gone through our. Yeah.
Floyd, did you tell people where to find Pop List yet?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna mention. Like, I mean, we can't really do like close. Like, we can't really be like, oh yeah, I guess we can do closing thoughts on like the documentary. But I mean, like,
I'm good. I'm
about it. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, look, guys. Thank you so much for listening to this. Floyd, thank you so much for being here, man.
I enjoyed
this. Has been an absolute blast. Tell us about the Pop List. Tell us about what you got cooking over at the Pop List. You're an amazing podcast.
So I have been very lazy. The Pop List is nowhere near as organized as your guys' podcast, but I enjoy what I do. It's a hobby for me. So I've been kind of little lazy with it. I haven't put anything out, but there's definitely a couple episodes that I have prepared and I'm ready to put out. But the Pop List can be found just about anywhere. I mean, Apple Podcast or Overcast or any of the normal places where you would find podcasts. And we do kind of some random things, but it's kind of a facts and figure driven podcast. So we'll do things on serial killers or cannibals or and then we'll do things on things that are kind of mundane, like how did that company get its name? Those types of things, just kind of interesting facts and figures type of thing. So we just kind of have fun with it, and I'm not really, I don't have a lot of a pattern when I put out episodes. Sometimes I'll put out 3 or 4 in a month, and sometimes I'll go 3 or 4 months without putting out one. But like I said, we have a couple prepared to go, but we're the Pop List. If you want to find us, like I said, we're just about anywhere you can find podcasts, and we have a Facebook page, the Pop List Podcast. So if anybody wants to check us out, I appreciate it.
Nice. And I mean, like, as you can hear, Floyd's got a voice built for podcasting. So I mean, if you want a veritable, I guess, archive of podcasts, you can head to the Pop List to check them out. There are some amazing episodes. I mean, like, they're all great, but man, some of them are just like mind blowing.
I appreciate that.
I love it, Floyd. Colin.
Hey, buddy.
Why don't you close us out, bitch, man? I've been talking. I mean, you've been talking to her, but I'm just like,
no, that sounds great, guys. We hope you enjoyed the episode. Thanks for checking us out. If this is your first time listening, make sure to stop and rate and review us on iTunes if you enjoyed the show. It's free. It takes 5 minutes. Give us those 5 stars, and also you can find us on socials pretty much anywhere. Midnight Double Feature. The big thing is really our Patreon. That's going to be patreon.com/Midnight Double Feature. That's where you're going to be able to find everything. But if you ever have any questions you want some merch, you want to check out some written reviews and stuff that we have, or look at some bios on us and get a good feel for who we are, MidnightDoubleFeature.com is going to be a place to find all that stuff. So check that out. If you ever have any questions, all roads lead back to MidnightDoubleFeature.com. This has been a great episode. Floyd, thanks a lot for coming on, man. This has been a blast. It's been a minute since Breaking Bad.
I am so honored to be on. I will tell you guys that, you know, I've been around with you guys since day one. And I never would have guessed that you guys would have actually turned this into what you've turned it into. And that's not a backhanded comment or compliment or comment. I just, you know, so many podcasts come and go, you know what I mean? And you guys, like some of the guests you've gotten and some of the coverage that you've done, and as consistent as you have been, I mean, I'm telling you guys are like in the 1%, you know what I mean? And
thanks, man.
It's amazing. You really are. I'm saying it's amazing, and I enjoy every second of it. So I can't say enough how much I have been impressed and entertained by what you guys do. It's fantastic.
Well, thanks, man. My ulcers, thank you.
Man. That's awesome. Thank you so much.
No, I'm just kidding. Guys, we hope you enjoyed this episode. If you ever have any questions, again, MidnightDoubleFeature.com will be the place to go. Check out Floyd at the Pop List Podcast. It's really, really great. We will see you guys on the next one. Take care.